Last Wednesday, the very unfortunate event of the penny discontinuation took place, so as one last goodbye, we'll be going through literally everything you need to know about the penny, including its uses in each decade from the time that the first one was made to their discontinuation on November 12th, 2025. Because the penny has been around for 232 years, this will be a long video, so buckle up as we adventure through the life and death of this 1-cent coin. Now, the reason the penny was discontinued was because its value was essentially nothing, but back in the decade of their invention, they looked like this and were 100% copper, and were worth roughly 35 cents in today's money. It may still sound like it's worth nothing, but back then that was enough for a loaf of bread, or many small household items such as candles. When the 19th century started, the penny had lost a significant amount of value because it was only worth about 25 cents in today's money, but this was still enough for a loaf of bread, a cup of coffee, or even a newspaper. In the early 1800s, this idea of a 1-cent newspaper actually led to a newspaper called the penny press. Because the penny has no value today, saying that feels quite awkward. In the 1810s, pennies celebrated their 20th birthday by decreasing by a significant amount in value since the 1800s. During this time, the penny was worth about 20 cents in today's money. Despite still being worth way more than today, this was only enough for a small drink, a single piece of produce, or a few pounds of basic staples such as cheese, butter, or sugar. It's crazy to think that those items are about 500 times more expensive than they were back then. Moving on, the 1820s was a post-war era because the War of 1812 ended 5 years before this time. Because of this, the penny's value actually increased and it was worth about 28 cents in today's money. This, however, still wasn't a huge difference from the 1810s, and the penny's buying power was basically the same. Next, in the 1830s, the penny had about the same value as 35 25 cents. This was surprisingly enough for a quart of beer, despite it only being enough for a tiny cup of coffee or a single biscuit. In the next decade, which was the 1840s, the penny's value actually went up by 2 25 cents. At the same time, the postage stamp was invented and they could be purchased with a penny. Also, the penny was enough to buy a handful of hard candy, also known as the ancestor of the Jolly Rancher. Now in 1850, the penny's value faced a significant increase at 42 cents in today's money. Because of this, the penny was enough for everything I previously mentioned, or even a tin of oil. During this decade, a penny wasn't enough for a full meal, but it still had a somewhat high buying power. Next, in the 1860s, prices were gradually increasing, so while the penny was valued at 39 cents in today's money, it really didn't have much buying power. It was only enough for a small piece of candy or a single nail at the hardware store. A penny in 1870 had a similar buying power to what it had 10 years ago, but it was only worth about 25 cents in 2025 money. This could buy a single stick of gum, a sliver of butter, which was 15 cents per pound, or 40% of an apple because 2 of them cost a nickel. Next up, a penny's value in the 1880s was 32 cents in 2025 money. One thing that the penny could buy was just a single stick of gum, which isn't too far off from today's prices at roughly 13 cents per stick. We're now at the end of the 19th century, and this was one of the last decades that the penny actually had some value to it. Its buying power was basically the same as the last 50 years, but its value had increased by 6 cents in today's money. By now, I've probably given you the idea that you could just walk into a convenience store at this time with the cent in your pocket and you could probably buy one of anything. It's now the start of the 20th century and the penny's buying power is about to go way down. But before it did, transportation by train was quite common and cheap. The penny's value was about 40 cents in today's money, and it was enough to cover 1 mile if you were taking the train. That means you could literally travel from San Francisco to New York City with only $30. By 1910, the penny's buying power had started its decline that eventually led to its discontinuation 115 years later. A single penny was worth 34 cents in 2025 money and was sufficient for a tiny candy bar or a single postcard. I know that a postcard is significantly more expensive today, but you can probably see that the penny is now well on its way to becoming worthless. In 1920, the penny faced a massive decline in value of 18 cents in today's money, meaning that it was only worth about 16 cents in 2025 money. Despite the penny being able to buy a decently sized snack earlier, this was only enough for a newspaper or a small cup of coffee. The 1930s did see a slight 3-cent increase in the value of the penny, but due to increasing prices, there wasn't much it could buy besides a few Tootsie Rolls or just one cigarette. Also, a penny was enough for a few basic groceries, but only if they were in small portions. So believe it or not, pennies were actually the most common form of currency in America in the 1940s. In today's money, they were worth about 20 cents, and I was surprised to hear that after having such low purchasing power, a penny was actually enough for a quart of milk. The mid-20th century was when the penny was seriously becoming pointless. They were only worth about 13 cents in today's money, and the only thing they could really buy was a piece of hard candy or just one stick of gum. From this point on, the 1-cent coin's buying power will be quite low, and it won't really be able to buy anything. By the 1960s, most convenience store items were slightly more than a penny, with most being around 3 to 5 cents. There was, however, one thing that could be bought with a penny, and that is a gumball. Now I'm going to talk about 4 decades at once because I think you get the idea that until the start of the 21st century, the only thing that a penny could buy was gum and hard candy. At this point, the price of most items moved from 1 cent to about 50 cents, therefore taking away almost all the penny's buying power. Next, in the 2010s, the penny really couldn't buy anything, but they were commonly used in change because most prices until now were rounded to the nearest penny. Because this was when money was starting to be worth so little, it actually cost almost 2 cents to even produce a penny. Because of this, it was clear that the 1-cent coin was on its way out. The final decade of the penny was the 2020s. The US Mint stopped making pennies mostly because they were losing lots of money by producing them. It was a reasonable decision to end production because it costed 4 cents to make just 1 penny. Until now, I've never really cared about the penny, but I've now realized that it's been such a big part of my life. Whatever happens to me, the childhood memory of the penny will be something I'll never forget. Bye, guys.